But when the communication opened, the face that appeared on the screen was one that Voss recognized with shock. Commander Elena Reyes, the human who had supposedly died in the final battle for Earth, looked back at her with eyes that held no mercy. Admiral Voss, Elena said calmly, "I believe you have something that belongs to us." "You're dead," Voss stammered. "We have recordings of your ship being destroyed." "Death is a human concept that you never fully understood," Elena replied. "You destroyed our bodies, but you couldn't destroy our will. You conquered our worlds, but you couldn't conquer our spirit. You declared victory, but you never won the war." The transmission ended, and the human fleet simply vanished, leaving the Zephyrians staring at empty space and wondering if they had imagined the entire encounter. But the doubt that had been planted in their minds would grow like a cancer, spreading through their ranks and destroying their confidence from within, in the depths of space. Elena Reyes smiled for the first time in 30 years. The real war was just beginning. But when the communication opened, the face that appeared on the screen was one that Voss recognized with shock. Commander Elena Reyes, the human who had supposedly died in the final battle for Earth, looked back at her with eyes that held no mercy. "Admiral Voss," Elena said calmly, "I believe you have something that belongs to us." "You're dead," Voss stammered. "We have recordings of your ship being destroyed." "Death is a human concept that you never fully understood," Elena replied. "You destroyed our bodies, but you couldn't destroy our will. You conquered our worlds, but you couldn't conquer our spirit. You declared victory, but you never won the war." The transmission ended, and the human fleet simply vanished, leaving the Zephyrians staring at empty space and wondering if they had imagined the entire encounter. But the doubt that had been planted in their minds would grow like a cancer, spreading through their ranks and destroying their confidence from within, in the depths of space. Elena Reyes smiled for the first time in 30 years. The real war was just beginning. The silent storm 72 hours after the Zephyrian victory celebration. The galaxy began to understand that something fundamental had changed. The silence that had fallen over the outer territories was spreading inward like a plague, consuming Zephyrian installations and fleets with terrifying efficiency. Admiral Kestra Voss stood in the war room of her flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching as red warning lights flickered across the tactical display. Each light represented a Zephyrian facility that had gone dark in the past day. The pattern was unmistakable. They were being hunted. "Status report," she commanded, her voice betraying none of the fear that was growing in her chest. 17. "More outposts have gone silent," reported her intelligence officer. "But here's what's disturbing, Admiral. We sent investigation teams to the first affected sites. They found the installations completely intact, but every piece of Zephyrian technology had been ... modified. Modified how? They're running human software now. Our own systems have been turned against us. The communication arrays are broadcasting human signals. The defense networks are targeting our ships. And the manufacturing facilities are producing weapons we've never seen before." "High Chancellor," Thane's holographic form materialized in the center of the room, his usually composed demeanor cracked with visible stress. "Admiral, I need to know how this is possible. Our intelligence services assured us that humanity was extinct." Before Voss could respond, the ship's communication system crackled to life. The voice that emerged was unmistakably human, but it seemed to come from everywhere at once, as if the entire ship had become a speaker. "Chancellor Thane, Admiral Voss," the voice said with cold politeness. "This is Commander Elena Reyes of the Human Resistance. I believe it's time we had a proper conversation." Security officers rushed to seal the communication systems, but their efforts were futile. The voice continued, as if their actions were nothing more than an amusing distraction. "You've been wondering how we survived your final solution, Alina." Continued, "Let me explain. 30 years ago, when your fleets first entered our space, we realized that we couldn't win a conventional war. So we decided to fight an unconventional one." The main display screen flickered and changed, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of points of light began to appear, each one representing a hidden human installation. While you were focused on destroying our colonies and fleets, we were building something else. A network of bases hidden in places you never thought to look. Inside gas giant atmospheres, in the cores of dead stars, in pocket dimensions that exist, parallel to our own reality. We called it the Lazarus Network, because it was designed to bring humanity back from the dead. Admiral Voss felt her blood turn to ice as she realized the scope of what she was seeing. The humans hadn't just survived, they had been preparing for this moment for decades. "But that's not all," Alina continued. "We also did something that your intelligence services never detected. We infiltrated your civilization, not just with spies, but with sleeper agents. Zephyrians who had been surgically altered to look human, then altered again to look Zephyrian. Humans who had been genetically modified to pass for other species. We have been living among you for 30 years, learning your weaknesses, mapping your infrastructure, and waiting for the moment when you would declare victory and let down your guard." As if to demonstrate this point, 3 of the officers in the war room suddenly turned toward each other, their eyes glowing with an inner light. Without a word, they began to move with perfect coordination, their hands dancing over control panels with inhuman precision. "Stop them," Voss shouted, but it was too late. The officers had already transmitted something through the ship's communication system. Within seconds, similar scenes were playing out across the entire Zephyrian fleet. "You see," Elena's voice explained, "we didn't just plant agents among your people, we planted them in your command structure. Your trusted advisors, your loyal officers, your beloved family members. They've been human all along, waiting for the signal to reveal themselves." The implications hit Voss like a physical blow. If the humans had been this deeply embedded in Zephyrian society, then everything her people thought they knew about the war was a lie. Every strategic decision, every intelligence report, every seemingly successful operation had been observed and analyzed by human agents. "What do you want?" Chancellor Thane demanded, his voice cracking with desperation. "Justice," Alina replied simply. "You bombed our hospitals. You targeted our schools. You turned our children into refugee streams and then attacked the ships that tried to save them. You called it military necessity, but we call it genocide." The display screen changed again, showing footage from the war. Zephyrian ships firing on clearly marked medical facilities, civilian transports being destroyed as they fled burning worlds, human prisoners being paraded through Zephyrian cities like trophies. The images were burned into the memory of every human who had survived, and now they were being broadcast across the galaxy. "The difference between us," Alina continued, "is that we remember everything, every atrocity, every war crime, every moment of suffering that your people inflicted on ours. And unlike you, we don't forget." As if summoned by her words, the human fleet began to decloak around the Zephyrian ships. They emerged from hyperspace, from stealth fields, from dimensions that the Zephyrians didn't know existed. Hundreds of vessels, each one a masterpiece of technology that had been hidden from alien eyes for decades. But these weren't the crude, boxy ships that the Zephyrians remembered from their previous encounters with humanity. These vessels moved like living things, their hulls rippling with energy fields that seemed to bend space around them. They were beautiful and terrible, works of art that had been crafted for a single purpose: to bring judgment to those who had tried to exterminate their creators. Admiral whispered her tactical officer, "I'm reading power signatures that shouldn't be possible. These ships are generating more energy than our entire fleet combined." Dr. Marcus Chen, watching from Installation Omega, smiled grimly as he saw the fear in the Zephyrian faces. The technology that powered the human fleet was the result of 30 years of desperate innovation, when conventional physics couldn't provide the solutions they needed. Human scientists had started looking beyond the conventional. They had learned to harness the energy of dying stars, to manipulate the fabric of space-time itself, to reach into parallel dimensions and draw power from the quantum foam that existed between realities. The Zephyrians had superior numbers and established infrastructure, but humans had something more valuable: the ability to think outside the boundaries of what was supposedly possible. "We could destroy you now," Elena's voice continued, "but that would make us no better than you. So instead, we offer you a choice: withdraw from all human territories, release all human prisoners, and submit to war crimes tribunals, or we will demonstrate why humanity survived when every other species that challenged us didn't." Chancellor Thane's holographic form flickered with uncertainty. "And if we refuse?" The answer came not in words, but in demonstration. One of the human ships, a vessel no larger than a Zephyrian destroyer, fired a single beam of coherent energy at a nearby asteroid. The rock, which had been roughly the size of a moon, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but erased from reality as if it had never been there at all. "That technology," Elena explained, "works on living beings too. We call it the entropy beam. It doesn't kill you. It removes you from existence. No pain, no suffering, no memory that you ever lived. It's almost merciful." The silence that followed was deafening. Every Zephyrian in the fleet was trying to process what they had just witnessed. Technology that could erase matter from existence was beyond their understanding, a violation of everything they thought they knew about the laws of physics. "You're bluffing," Admiral Voss said finally, but her voice lacked conviction. "No species could develop such technology." "You're right," Elena agreed. "No species could, but we're not just a species anymore. We're something new, something that was born from the ashes of your genocide attempt. We're the collective will of every human who ever lived, focused on a single purpose: ensuring that what you did to us never happens again." The human fleet began to move, not toward the Zephyrian ships, but around them, forming a perfect sphere with the alien vessels at its center. The movement was flawless, as if the hundreds of ships were controlled by a single mind. "We are patient," Elena continued. "We can wait for your answer. We have waited 30 years already. We can wait 30 more. But while you're deciding, remember this: we know where every one of your worlds is located. We know where your leaders sleep, where your children play, where your most precious cultural artifacts are stored. We know because we've been living among you, watching you, learning from you. We know you better than you know yourselves." In the depths of space, on Installation Omega, Elena Reyes stood before a wall of screens showing every major Zephyrian population center. Her finger hovered over a button that would initiate the final phase of the Prometheus Protocol, the plan that would end the Zephyrian Consortium forever. But she hesitated. The human fleet had the power to erase an entire civilization from existence, but doing so would make them the very monsters they had fought against. The line between justice and genocide was thin, and Alina could feel herself standing on the edge of that precipice. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Torres quietly, "we're receiving responses from the Zephyrian leadership. They single quotes, . They're asking for terms." Alina closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, they held not hatred, but a terrible sadness. "Tell them we'll negotiate, but make it clear that this is their one chance. If they betray us again, if they try to rebuild their war machine, if they so much as threaten a single human life, there will be no mercy." The war was over, but the peace that followed would be built on the understanding that humanity had become something new. They were no longer the primitive species that had first encountered the Zephyrians decades ago. They were the survivors, the ones who had looked into the abyss of extinction and found within themselves the strength to not just endure, but to transcend. In the end, the Zephyrians had achieved something they never intended. In trying to destroy humanity, they had created something far more dangerous, a species that would never again allow itself to be vulnerable, never again trust in the goodwill of others, never again believe that the universe was a safe place for the weak. The stars themselves seemed to whisper a warning that would echo through the ages. Humanity had learned to be patient, they had learned to be thorough, and they had learned to never, ever forget. The war was over. The reckoning had begun. Asterisk.